Cause I ordered my. Were you not paying attention? I ordered my shirt from Japan. Okay.
What the fuck is BTS?
It's a boy band. You never heard?
Did you watch?
Because I'm cultured as fuck.
Listen to
Okay?
them.
You don't got no culture over there. Sitting over. You ever been on a jet ski? No, cause you hang out with that crying ass Cove all day. Why am I talking like Baxter?
I'll take your Boston ass the fuck out of
I
here.
will take my Boston ass to have more fun without you. Once again, once again, it's once again, we've been here for 2 minutes. 2 minutes, you're already crying. Oh, what do I do? My son's hugging me. And then you were and then you were bone. You were bone. You were a bone. Damn. Calm your thirsty ass. I was getting, you a funny story? I'll tell you a funny story. I get ready to play this game, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go in the back and play it. And Ari Master's like, well, can I come with you? Because he's been here for the whole entire Cove journey. See him over there. Tell us how you feel about Cove, Ari Master.
I think he doesn't know what he wants from a lady.
What's up, bitches? It's Noisy Face, or should I say French Fires, back for some more Cove Holden. You hear the soothing sounds of our life, beginning and always in the background. We got some new DLC. We'll see if Cove pisses us off royally again, because he totes does all the time. He's aggravating. Anyways, I just had some hamburgers and cheese fries in honor of my namesake. Let's jump in. It's gonna be great. We got five new mementos here, and then summer ended. We're probably not gonna get through all these today. Probably gonna do 2, and then more at a later date. Reflection. After finishing breakfast at the Holden's house, you and Cove had retreated to his room to relax before starting the day in earnest. Or perhaps you would take it easy for the whole afternoon. Neither of you had plans exactly, so you were free to do whatever came to mind. You were leaning against Cove on his bed. You fiddled with a Rubik's Cube. Rubik's Cubes are hot trash. You stood watching Cove's fish swim idly, sat next to Cove on the bed, toying with his hair. He does have those Matthew McConaughey locks. You sat on the ground, doodling pictures in the sand scattered across the floor. Clean your room, Cove. I'm gonna go for fish. Fish. There were tiny ones darting away as soon as they came into view, and big ones drifting aimlessly along. You let your attention wander from one to another, their movements lulling you into a trance. Even with your mind elsewhere, you could tell Cove was similarly at ease. He had his chin propped up with one hand as he scrolled through his phone. A burst of laughter broke through the silence, hooking your attention and bringing you back to the present. You looked at Cove for an explanation. His eyes, now crinkled in mirth, were still locked on his screen. You gonna let me in on the joke? He finally looked up at you, smirking. Dad scanned some old photos, you know? He drew a rectangle in the air with the phone free hand. Printed out ones, back from when I was little. Texted it all to me last night, I guess. I've been checking them out. You were looking at kitty photos and didn't tell me. Can I see? That's cool. You smiled. That sounded nice. You sat up, wide-eyed and hopeful. Just wanted to see. I'm to say, can I see? Cove narrowed his eyes. Smile still bent. I was gonna show you. Oh, were you? Were you? I just wanted to look at it first to make sure there was nothing super embarrassing. You never know with my dad. He grimaced. He grimaced, envisaging what horrors his dad might unwittingly spring on him. Is that a word? It's not like envisioning, it's envisaging? I mean, what if there's a photo of me getting potty trained or something? You suppressed an empathetic shudder and nodded. You laughed at Cove's fraught expression. Kids' pictures are supposed to be embarrassing. That's part of the fun! He was holding out on you, but your protest was of no use. Cove only cleared his throat, nervously, the fear of his dad's well-meaning actions still looming large in his mind. Anyway, before we forget, I was laughing because I came across the Halloween from when I was 8. The year I was a zombie, remember? He shook his head, grinning wryly while holding the phone out to you. You walked over and took a seat on the bed next to him to get a full view. Oh, it's so cute! I never even liked zombies. All I wanted was to show off my new scar, and it needed to be something scary. Couldn't be a normal person who had a scar. That's fucking lame. Who does that? Kids who have to make their own Halloween costume every year? Oh, you did? Sucks to be you. I was a dork. You're still a dork. I hate to break it to you, man. Dad really wanted to be useful, as usual. He came up with the idea of being an undead person. It was pretty good, huh? Man, I was so jealous. It was good, but my costume that year was better. It was decent, but it's not the best. Oh, Liz was grossed out. Shiloh was terrified. He probably was. I remember you getting lots of extra candy when the adults realized the scar was real. Oh man, it's probably between that or my costume was better. I'm gonna go candy. Candy for the win. Must have been your greatest Halloween haul ever. Cove chuckled at your reply. Can't believe how much larger my scar used to be. He looked down at his arm, a soft smile on his face, and traced what remained of the jagged line with his fingers, just as you'd seen him do countless times before. His voice was playful when he spoke again. Look how tiny it is now. How am I gonna pretend to be tough without a big scar? Well, I don't think you could have done that regardless, Bish. I'm just saying. You never fooled anyone. That's what I should say. You definitely blow your street cred. Oh, that's more me, though. You don't have to say it, even if it is true. Cove smiled bashfully, pleased with his joke, and ducked his head. That was a joke? And ducked his head to look away from you. His fingers were still tracing the scarred path of his skin. I really do like having this, even if it is kinda little these days. Voice was shy, like he was letting you in on a big secret. Cove turned back to face you fully, finally letting go of his scar. He was happy. That mark was a part of him, and it clearly held a meaning for Cove. You laid a reassuring hand on his arm. Can I touch your scar? I don't ask permission, bitch. You cupped his arm with your fingers carefully as your thumb ran down the outline of his scar. Along with the rougher tissue of the scar, you could also feel goosebumps on his arm. Cove let out a choked breath, a dizzied smile playing out on his face. It was evident that he liked the feeling. Ah, you held his gaze, you lifted his arm up to kiss the scar. I'm gonna kiss it. All kissy and shit. Your hold shifted so you could bring his forearm to your face. Cove quietly gasped when he realized what you were doing. You tenderly kissed the old wound that marked him. Cove squeaked at the feeling of your lips on him, and in that spot in particular, but his expression was overwhelmingly one of adoration. Cove couldn't stay still and reached for you himself with his free hand. He leaned forward, eyes gleaming. Can I kiss you? Just do it, Cove! Just fucking do it! Please do. No. No! His cheeks burned red as he closed the gap between you, his mouth gently meeting yours. You held onto his arm like a lifeline as you kissed him back, briefly worried that you might drown in the depths of your feelings. Then you opened your eyes, meeting Cove's, and knew that the feeling was mutual. He laid his forehead to rest against yours, and you felt his hot breath tickling your face. Heads touching, your hand on his arm, you were entwined with Cove, and it felt right. Time couldn't register in that moment. Could have been seconds or minutes, but eventually you straightened up, lifting your hand from his scar. That seemed to break the spell. Though he stayed close to you, Cove sat up and came to his senses. Your eyes drifted back to the scar on Cove's arm. The scar had been there as long as you'd known Cove, though when you first met, it had been concealed by that neon pink cast.
You want to hear how I managed to go jet skiing when I was 8?
I asked you that, alright? I asked if you were like a fucking secret agent, and you didn't answer me. You were initially stunned that he'd guessed what you were thinking. Though, given the topic of conversation and the direction of your gaze, it was a natural conclusion to reach. Not bothered by your reaction, Cove continued with a shrug.
I don't mind telling you. It's nothing special.
He rubbed the back of his neck, grinning sheepishly.
Mostly it's just really dumb.
You nodded. That was something you'd like to hear more about, especially knowing that no lasting harm had come of it. Cove stared into the distance, lips parted as he readied the story in his mind.
So, my dad and mom were at a party. I don't know if it was a casual get-together or a specific celebration. I hope it wasn't for something meaningful, considering how it ended.
He winced, and then managed a bashful smile.
Anyway, my mom and dad were off doing stuff, talking to people, I guess. I was left with other non-adults. Most of them were older than I was. Maybe all of them were? Let's go! I don't need this exposition. So one time, when I was eating an egg, it wasn't just a regular egg. I had to crack it, but I didn't crack it like any other egg.
His brow furrowed and he tried to recall dusty memories. Then he shrugged again and continued.
Older kids were taking turn on the jet skis. There weren't enough for everyone to ride at once, so in between turns they were hanging out on the shore. I was meant to just sit there and watch them.
Remembering when you first met Cove, you bet that he hadn't been satisfied with that arrangement. He confirmed that suspicion.
I was pretty unhappy. It wasn't a party for me, not when all I could do was look at other people have fun, and I couldn't. Teens must have realized that, though I never hid when I was pouting as a kid.
Only when you were a kid? Cove bristled with embarrassment and looked pretty sulky to you. You're pouting right now!
Come on, let me finish the story.
Alright. Cove sighed, letting go of the interruption and picking up where he left off.
Basically, someone offered to let me ride. I was way too small to drive it myself, but this older kid, he must have been at least 16, said I could sit in front of them while they controlled the jet ski. I knew I wasn't supposed to do anything like that. Still, I figured my parents were doing whatever they wanted, so why couldn't I? I nodded at the person, and I remember the other teens helping me onto the jet ski, along with the one driving. We sped off into the water.
Cove smiled widely and wistfully.
It was amazing! At first, my hair was flying everywhere as we zoomed away from the shore. I love being out on the water like that. Too bad it turned out steering a jet ski with an 8-year-old sat on your lap was harder than a bunch of kids figured it would be. The teens tried their best, but they couldn't keep control for long. We got spun around and went right into the sand.
You sucked in a deep breath.
The other person wasn't hurt, thankfully. They held onto the bars and stayed in their seat. I didn't. I was thrown at full speed into a rocky part of the shore near the dock. I must have tried to brace for impact or catch myself because my arm is what I mostly landed on.
You looked down at the limb in question. You could see him visualizing the long-healed injury.
It was pretty torn up. After that, it's hazy for me. I got taken to the hospital. I didn't feel a lot of pain when it first happened. All I remember thinking about was how I was covered in sand and the grains were uncomfortable.
The sand. The sand was uncomfortable. Cove chuckled.
I know, right? I did start feeling my arm later. It definitely hurt eventually. Doctor said my arm was broken, along with being torn open. That's how I ended up getting my pink cast. He smiled nostalgically. That color just seemed so nice and happy at the time. It brightened the mood, so I picked it. The smile faded. He finished the story with a sigh, his eyes downcast. I feel bad I did any of that. Hope whoever the teen was, they weren't traumatized by seeing a little kid go flying into the ground. They're just trying to do a nice thing. Cove threw his arms out to the side dramatically. I wish I knew who they were so I could give them a call and say I'm still in one piece. But yeah, that's the full story.
So glad you're both okay. I'm sorry that happened. You laughed at a terrible idea. How could you be so reckless? I would probably laugh. Let's go there. Sorry, Cove, but that was dumb. Cove sighed again, the regret written plainly on his face.
It was a failure. That's just the truth.
He smiled flatly.
But to my credit, I think I've grown a lot since then. Wait.
Cove's eyes went completely wide, suddenly reinvigorated. He seized his phone and tapped away at the screen. What's up?
I knew it.
You weren't sure that he'd heard you, but he set his phone down and turned his face directly at you. This was resolute. Though the glow of the screen was no longer reflected in his eyes, they seemed to sparkle even brighter than before.
French fires, you're adults. We can decide things for ourselves now.
You only realize that now. Okay, where's this going? This can't be going anywhere good. I like where this is headed. Yeah, you're just now realizing that, Cove? Okay.
The age requirement to rent a jet ski in California is 18. You totally do. The jet ski, I mean, not sex.
Let's use our adult powers for a jet skiing adventure. You want to break another bone? There's more exciting things adults can do. I mean, that's true. You eat cake for breakfast. That's pretty damn exciting. I've never been on a jet ski. In my whole life. Anyway. Cove beam, pumping the air with both fists. Definitely the action of someone mature enough to run a vehicle.
All right.
Within a moment, Cove had recovered and returned to his serious expression from before.
I'll be careful, and I really want you to be there when I try it again. Please.
His voice was soft and earnest. You could tell how much the request meant to him. You also knew him enough to know that he wasn't going to give up on this idea. Letting him go on his own wasn't an option. Of course I'll be there. I wouldn't miss it. I love jet skiing. I'd be interested in trying jet skiing. I'll keep an eye on you from sure. I would get on a jet ski. I'd probably wreck it, just like Cove, but I would get on a jet ski. Cove perked up at once, a grin stretched wide across his face. He was practically bouncing in place.
Let's go!
You got up and worked as a team to gather everything you needed for the trip. Cove's other aquatic hobbies came in handy, and he was quickly kitted out with everything he needed other than the jet skis themselves. You needed to run back home briefly, having dressed and prepared for a day that didn't involve jet skiing. But soon enough, you were both ready and jumping into Cove's car. As you got in, you learned that Cove had used the brief time apart to locate a rental store on his phone. You caught his eye as you clicked your seatbelts into place. Excited, you held out your hand. Cove slapped it in a high five before setting off. You and Cove soon arrived. The ocean was perfectly inviting today. The deep blue of water glittered under the clear sky, while the tide rolled in and out at its leisure.
I'm so excited for this.
You were just as pumped. His excitement was adorable. You felt a little worried. That's where I'm gonna go. Not sure this is a great idea. Spotting your uncertainty, Cove gave you a reassuring smile.
Oh hey, wanna say hi to my dad while we're here? I already texted Mom about the plan. He's working right now.
You remembered how close his shop was. It wouldn't take long even by walking. Yeah, let's go brighten his day with our cheery faces. Mr. Holden was a great guy, so you were happy to check in on him.
Thanks. Sorry, it might be kind of awkward when he hears why we're here, but it should be alright. I mean, my parents forgave me a long time ago for that amazing stunt. I don't want to be scared off jet skiing for my whole life because of it.
This time, the one he seemed to be attempting to reassure was himself. It was only a short walk back down the dock to Mr. Holden's scuba shop. Cove breezed in, as familiar with the store as he was with his own home. The place was quiet, empty aside from a couple of customers quietly browsing and Cove's dad behind the counter. Mr. Holden looked up, his friendly expression spreading into a grin when he saw who had just entered. Hey, French fries. Hey, brah. What brings you all the way out here? He cast an eye at the way the two of you were dressed. Judging by how you're decked out, I'm guessing scuba diving? There's plenty here for that, brah. What can I help you with? Cove chuckled, amused at how quickly his dad seized on to a favorite topic. Or maybe it was how his dad always fell over himself trying to be useful.
Hi, Dad. We're not doing that this time. Sorta decided to go rent a couple of jet skis.
The phrase jet skis had set Mr. Holden's mouth in a taunt line immediately. Jet skis, bruh? He echoed the words as his eyes instinctively darted to the scar on Cove's arm. That's when you fucked yourself up, bruh. Mr. Holden started to speak several times, each attempt quickly abandoned. Cove smiled encouragingly, trying not to add to his father's worry.
Promise I'll be careful. And French fires will be there too. We always look out for each other.
Mr. Holden pinched his face back into an unconvincing smile. Alright, you're a whole lot bigger now than you were back then, brah. Heck, you drive a car and everything. Sure, you and French fries will have plenty of fun, brah. The worry still echoed out in his voice, barely concealed by the positive words, but Cove was buoyed by his father's support.
Yeah. Well, we're all set. We only stopped by to say hi and to let you know, since we're over here.
Mr. Holden beamed, obviously moved by his son's simple consideration. Wow, you're so thoughtful, bro. Thanks for taking the time. Cove gave his dad a crooked smile, shaking his head bashfully. He'd long stopped finding his dad's effusive praise, but that didn't mean he ever became good at accepting it. Mr. Holden simply laughed at his son's response. It'd be great if you could keep me in the loop while you're out there too, bro. Just text me and let me know if it's going well or anything. Yeah, and then my phone's gonna drop in the ocean, and how are you gonna feel about that, bro?
I will.
His dad smiled more easily. Great, bro. Cove rubbed at his arm, causing Mr. Holden's eyes to momentarily twitch back to the childhood injury.
We're gonna head out. See you later.
Take care, brah. Don't work too hard. Mr. Holden waved you off as you left the store. The pair of you headed back to the docks, walking side by side. After your feet hit the boards, Cove's pace fell. Glancing over, you saw him looking down over the water. That would have been unusual if his expression hadn't been so somber. He wasn't geared up with anticipation or even nervousness, but with an uncharacteristic lethargy. Something was weighing heavy on his mind. Cove, what's up? You're gonna walk right off into the sea if you don't pay attention. I will gently nudge gently.
Huh?
He blinked, startled by you interrupting his rumination.
Oh, sorry.
He sighed. Though you'd torn his attention from the ocean, it gradually drifted back to the water. Cleared your throat, unwilling to lose him again.
Sorry. Again.
He put his hands to his face, rubbing his eyes wearily.
Here I go, thinking everything's resolved with what happened and we can have fun. But I just can't enjoy anything. Cove, this is what I do. Every episode. I just cry and whine.
You're having second thoughts about jet skiing?
No, it's not it.
The ends of his lips were drawn into the beginning of a frown, like gray clouds, clustering to signal a coming storm.
Figured my dad would be a little worried about me doing it. But what he was saying wasn't what I was expected. He was so sad. He was more than nervous. I think he feels bad, and now I feel bad. But it isn't as if I'm the only one who ever does something stupid or gets hurt. Got me thinking about that whole time. That's when I realized it wasn't long after that accident. My parents separated.
Yeah, hadn't you noticed before?
Well, I kinda did, but not exactly in the way I'm seeing it now. As a kid, I didn't think about the consequences of my actions, you know? Or how what I did impacted other people. Like, why should I care? Why should anyone care? I'm out doing it, not them. It made no sense, and I still cared when other people did things I didn't like. But I was 8, and mostly just mad that nothing felt like it was in my control.
I could tell that he was building up to something, so you nodded for him to continue.
It's pretty difficult to deal with because of that attitude. Looking back, I think that's what saved me from something a lot of kids go through. Blaming themselves for their parents' divorce. Never crossed my mind that anything I did made a difference to my mom and dad's relationship. They would do what they did, no matter what. Now though, I guess it's kind of hard to ignore that, huh? The situation was already so hard, and I wasn't a good kid, so...
He let his words adrift as he looked down, the conclusion unfinished. It was silent between you, but only for a second. Cove pulled himself up to his full height, his chin held aloft. Whatever he decided, he was resolute.
I'm going back. I gotta talk to my dad. I'm not gonna let things be like before, where we just felt crappy and refused to even tell him what's going on. It doesn't work for either of us. You can go ahead if you want, I don't mind. Still, I really want to do this, and I'm sure it'll be okay.
Alright, see you later. You nodded. No, I want to be present for this emotional conversation that we're apparently having on our fun ski trip day. We always look out for each other, remember? Cove smiled gently, having wanted that deep down.
Thanks. Let's go.
You and Cove retook your steps down the docks once more, heading back to Mr. Holden's scuba shop. The customers you spotted in there before were now leaving the store, new bags clutched in their hands. You hoped that this would mean Cove could have his conversation without a public audience. This time, Cove strode into the shop with purpose. Mr. Holden, still at the counter, glanced up to greet whoever had come inside. He grinned as you approached. Hello again, brah. You, forget something?
Sort of.
Cove had reached the counter now. You needed to rush just to keep up with him as he crossed the show floor. Mr. Holden raised an eyebrow, taking in Cove's shift and attitude, and chose his next word with care. Everything alright, brah? Cove swallowed, not answering initially. Talking openly with his dad was still somewhat new for the son. You knew that he was struggling for the right way to begin.
I wanted to ask about what happened.
Mr. Holden winced as if the words had struck him physically. Oh, the accident, brah?
No, beginning, the dinosaurs, did they wear party hats? Cause, it's driving me crazy, man. I walked all the way back here, French fires in tow, to ask you about fucking dinosaurs.
An expression fell from Mr. Holden's face. Wide-eyed, his jaw slacked. He gaped at Cove.
Hi, brah.
Glanced over his shoulder at you. Your eyes met. You saw him draw confidence by having you at his side. He turned back to his father.
I want to know the truth.
His tone was grave.
Did me getting into the accident hurt your marriage? If I hadn't done it, would you and Mom have gotten along better?
No, brah. Hell no. Just literally what he said. Mr. Holden quashed the suggestion with a gravity you'd rarely heard in his voice. You were 8 years old. Not responsible in any way. Kira and I should have protected you, brah. I can understand why you're feeling that way. What happened? So horrible. How could it not have an impact? But it did, brah. It was a reflection of us as parents. The relationship between just your mom and me was separate and already unsalvageable, brah. Cove turned away, his brow still furrowed as he looked at the floor.
Maybe I'm being anxious and it's taking over, but it wasn't just then. I always cause problems.
He plowed on, unwilling to give up without explaining his worries.
What if I'd been easier to raise? Or if you had me later on? Maybe if you didn't have me at all. Might have been better for the two of you.
If I didn't have you, then what good would my life be, brah? Mr. Holden didn't let the words hang unchallenged in the air for even a second. He hurried over to Cove, taking his son's arm in his hands. Brah, listen. There's only one person to blame for things not working, and that's me. He opened his mouth to speak, but Mr. Holden forced on, determined to erase any question in Cove's mind. I'm not saying this to dishonestly push accountability off someone else or to throw a pity party for myself. You want to know the truth? So that's what I'm gonna give you, brah. Your father is the reason our family couldn't stay together. Brah. You think you caused trouble? You should have seen me at your age, brah. You're such a good kid. I can hardly believe how good you are. Mr. Holden's eyes were misty as he squeezed his son's arm. There's nothing, absolutely nothing you need to blame yourself? You need to blame yourself? I'm sorry, Cove. To you and to Kira, brah. Yeah, your mom, bro. His pained face eased slightly into a bittersweet smile. Kira, she's just so smart and driven and completely bursting with life. As if she could do anything, brah. Plus her boobs ain't bad, I'm just saying. No, there wasn't a single solitary person who didn't want even a piece of her attention. Just to catch her eye for a moment, brah. But for some crazy reason, she had a soft spot for my 17-year-old screw-up self, brah. It's when we first met. Well, it definitely took some time before I managed to ask her out on a date, brah. Mr. Holden shook his head. The smile melting at his recollection became solemn once more. And then we'd only been officially together for about 6 months when she found out we were having a baby, brah. So worried, so scared. She was so brave. She's my rock, brah. But we both knew the road ahead was going to be rockier. When we got married, I didn't see it as a dream come true. Wasn't about to start living my life the only way I could imagine doing so, brah. Thought what happened, happened. Throwing my cards in with a girl like her was worth the risk, brah. He grimaced, the sentence sour in his mouth, forgetting his past perspective. I've been taking care of myself, on my own and getting by, then all of a sudden I was gonna have a wife and a child, brah. So I thought, alright, I better step things up and take care of all of us. That's what I did. Well, sorta, brah. He rolled his eyes. Made money, kept a roof over our heads, and put food on the table, brah. I was always busy, focused on taking care of things. Like, I didn't stop to consider what anyone else was thinking or what they actually needed, brah. Made every decision about what I did, and as a result, what happened to my family, by myself. Never asking what your mom felt, or even wondering if she might have an opinion, brah. Tell Kira about the great place I'd found and how we'd been moving there in the same breath. Or that I'd spent all our savings and taken out a loan to start this business we're standing in, brah. And even more nonsense. Anything I felt I needed to do, I did. Kira couldn't even ask where I'd been all day without me rolling my eyes like she was being a nag. She is a fucking nag. I was making sure we didn't starve, brah. Obviously, right? Couldn't she trust me? He sighed, and his head hung low. She went to school part-time while raising you, really knuckling down. But that didn't matter to me back then, brah. She could have spent her days living in bed, not dying, and I would have felt the same. I didn't care. I was gonna get it all done on my own, either way. So stupid. I admire her more than anything when there was nothing at stake. Yet as soon as responsibilities were involved, I couldn't let myself rely on her, brah. He combed a hand through his hair, searching for an understanding of his own younger self. Not even sure why Maybe I had something to prove. Maybe I'm the one who didn't trust her in the end, brah. Poor Kira. She had to spend every day mentally weighing the pros and cons of putting up with my horrible ideas for the sake of peace, or trying to explain to my blockheaded self what I was doing wrong. Must have been so stressful and frustrating, brah. Constantly having to let everything go because I was stubborn and absolutely would make a fight out of it. He snorted bitterly. I was definitely stuck in my head a lot of those days, brah. Our relationship at that point was made of arguments and cool tolerance. But I still genuinely didn't see the divorce coming. Made it through the first few years, and after that I never really considered it ending. It's just how life was, brah. In retrospect, it's clear Kara kept thinking on it more every year, especially because she managed to finish her journalism degree, and with us being more stable, financially that is, she thought of everything. She timed it right when your school ended for the year, so the process would hopefully be all settled before you had to worry about class again, brah. We were already talking about it before the accident happened. I know, I took it really hard, being a sad sack all around the neighborhood, but even that's unfair of me. When it shook out, I'm the one who got everything. Kira didn't want to leave you, Cove. She never would have. Certainly, she felt like she had no choice in the end, but to end the relationship. Business was doing really well by then, so I had an easier time making a living. She was between jobs, and when she didn't get a new job, it meant she'd be traveling all the time, brah. Why she was willing to accept me having full custody. She didn't get to be there with her child for so many moments, and you had to spend half of your life growing up without your mother. That's my fault. Mr. Holden closed his eyes briefly as he took a breath. So that's it. Story of Cliff and Kira's marriage, brah. Not exactly a fairy tale, but I want to be clear. He saw his grip on Cove's arm tighten. No matter what happened with me and her, I'd never ever want to miss out on being your dad, brah. Cove's throat bobbed and he swallowed. His eyes glistened, glossy with tears that had yet to fall. He blinked quickly, trying to hold them back. Thank you for telling me. His voice was harsh, little more than a whisper. Mr. Holden brought a hand up to his face and lightly nudged Cove's chin. You're welcome. You're grown up now, right? You deserve the truth. The least I can do for you, brah. Cove managed a fragile smile. Thank you for taking care of me, for all of it. Mr. Holden brushed the complaint off with a whiff of complaint. Why are you complaining, brah? It was nothing. Look at where we ended up. I got this whole entire store, a house, friends here, a very thoughtful brah. It's all good for me. I'm glad. His voice was still quiet and he ducked his head shyly after saying the words. Mr. Holden patted him on the back. You could see the tears in Cove's eyes still shining, threatening to spill over. Mr. Holden put an arm around his shoulders, gently steering him towards the door. You should go have fun. Make some nice memories, brah. Cove's gaze flicked over to you. The watery smile on his face solidified. All right. Good. Now out you go, brah. Mr. Holden nudged the two of you out of the shop. You both walked silently as you made your return to the dock. Cove's face was pensive, clearly still digesting everything his dad had said. He finally sighed, catching your attention. He hesitantly reached for the bag he had brought and raised it up. French fries. I want to call my mom. I'm not going to leave her out of things, and I know what she thinks about what happened and all that. He fiddled with the straps of his bag. It still remained close shut. It's not like I don't trust Dad, it's just... Mom's thoughts are important, too. Well, you already wasted half our day, Cove. Can't see why you wouldn't keep doing it. You seemed relieved that you understood. You knew he didn't want to be a bother with another delay. Thanks. I guess there's no time like the present. Time to ask. With a mini pep talk, he finally opened his bag and found his phone. Cove unlocked it quickly and tapped over his favorite contacts. He called up his mom and put the phone on speaker as it dialed. Kira must have had her phone close because she answered almost immediately. Cove, it's a pleasant surprise. I thought you'd been getting back to me later.
Hey, Mom.
He paused for a second, and then looked at you.
You're on speakerphone with French fires, too.
Hi, Kira. Hello. Hi, I'm here. You kept quiet. She already knew you were there. Hey, Kira, your son's wasting all our time with sentimental shit. How you doing over there? Oh, hello. I'm popular today. Well, what's going on? Don't keep me in suspense. Are you a pro jet skier already? Cove chuckled and scratched the back of his head.
Haven't started yet. Actually, there's something I kind of want to ask you about.
Oh, really? I'm intrigued. Her voice was bright and excited. Cove moved the phone closer to his face so he could speak softly, aware that the tone of this conversation was about to change.
I talked to Dad earlier. It's about your relationship and why you divorced.
Ah. That one syllable had lost all her earlier energy. Cove tightened his grip on his phone. It does make sense that the past would come up today.
Yeah, but...
He tried to brighten up the mood again. You weren't used to him being the perky one of the two. You could only imagine it felt like a strange role reversal for him.
Dad said you were really amazing. He admired you a lot.
What a flatterer. She sighed wistfully and you could hear some interference. Maybe she had shaken her head. You couldn't tell for sure. Oh, Cliff. He bungled himself through regular everyday adulting and social situations in astoundingly charming ways. Yet somehow, at the same time, he was an ambitious, slightly shady, under-the-table type of man when it came to making his living in the world. I mean, he tried to bribe your friend with $20. You forget about that? Cove and Kira laughed delicately. The tension was broken into something lighter, more familiar between the two.
It's cool you both have nice things to say about each other.
I agree, baby. She took a moment before continuing carefully. Do you have a question about what happened?
I'm not sure.
Well, Jesus, Cove, what are we here for then? Cove squinted at the phone in his hand and he tried to think, his free hand brushing through his hair.
I just kind of wanted to know how you'd describe what it was like. Could I tell you what Dad said about it?
I don't think Cliff would mind. Whatever he told you is probably what he'd say to me. Go for it. After taking a breath, Cove recapped Cliff's experience, doing his best to follow his dad's story. He went into a surprising amount of detail, and not a single thing was missed. Kira listened in absolute silence, letting her son speak without interruption. When Cove finished, he took another deep inhale of air.
So, what do you think?
Kira sighed softly. You heard a clacking noise like she was drumming her nails on the back of her phone, or on a countertop. That definitely sounds like Clifford. It's not exactly wrong, but he doesn't have a total picture. He puts the emphasis on the wrong places, I think.
Oh, what do you mean?
For starters, Cliff unsurprisingly downplayed himself more than he had to.
He did?
Cove's eyebrows raised and his face continued to inch even closer to the screen. Well, since your dad was so praising of me, it's only fair to return the favor. When Cliff said he was already taking care of himself when he met me, he means he was on his own. Cliff's own parents weren't and still aren't friendly people. They've always had a combative relationship, though him getting into drinking and gambling as a teenager certainly didn't help. He knew they'd kick him out at 18, so he saved them the trouble and left home at 17. He always found a way to make it work, even without support. I met him a few months after that, and we hit it off right away. He was exactly what I wanted back then. We dated, and then about half a year later, bam! You were on the way, Cove. She laughed fondly as Cove clung to every word. I was really optimistic about all of it. I couldn't wait to be a mother, and I was more than happy that Cliff was the father who'd be along for the ride. We married quick before you were born. Cliff's recollection of our wedding dynamic is pretty spot on. He was extremely stubborn and just, well, immature. Highly, highly immature. Voice raised slightly, and you got the feeling she was thinking back to her memories living with him. She left the specifics unspoken. But it's not like I was grown up either. Everyone, except maybe Cliff, could see our relationship was no good. Or at least, not good enough yet to commit to. I knew. But I didn't want to give up. I wanted to keep the family together. I thought that if we divorced or we were never together, then we'd ruin your life, Cove. Obviously, that wasn't true. I just didn't have enough experience at the time to realize there wasn't only one option for us. Maybe things would have been easier on you if we'd split when you were a baby. But it took me years to figure it all out. Cove nodded. Even if his mom couldn't see it, thinking hard about something, he was likely remembering his own experiences back then. We were married, but we never seriously loved each other. We hardly knew each other. I don't mind that Cliff never viewed marrying me as some kind of dream come true. I honestly just appreciate that he tried giving me hastily made life plan a shot. I was the one who proposed after all. Got down on one knee and everything. She huffed slightly between a chuckle and a sigh. It's very funny and a little sad that Cliff still doesn't know why things changed between us. It's obvious to me, and I'd guess he knows deep down. He just never consciously made the connection. I'm not even mad he didn't stay the same towards me. Love makes everything different. But you said, I know what I said. She interrupted before Cove could finish his blurted out interjection. I don't mean Cliff and I. We were just two kids in a relationship that only ever worked when it was at its easiest. Then you were born, little Cove James Holden. I loved you immediately, and so did your father. Cove was stunned. His eyes started watering and his mouth clamped shut. The inclination we had towards each other was placed in the face of that. Our love to you was the real deal. Cliff was the proudest papa. Then, in true Cove fashion, tears began to fall. He stayed silent, but you were pretty sure Kira knew the effect her words had on her son. No matter how much time passed, Cliff never got over how amazing it was that such a precious little boy was his. I should have taken pictures of how he'd puff up whenever someone referred to you as his son. She sounded much cheerier now. A slight smile crept on Cove's face despite his tears. Then again, he still does now. It wasn't hard to imagine Mr. Holden lightening up around baby Cove, same way he did when 18-year-old Cove. I remember how, when a real argument started brewing, Cliff had a habit of walking away to cool off. He wasn't a way to handle it. His son seems to have taken after him that way. Don't he, though? Don't he? Heard her chuckle, and Cove looked down, a blush clear on his cheeks. You could feel her smirk through the phone. She breezed over the next section airily. For our whole relationship, he always ended fights by skipping out on me for who knew how long. And I don't think even Cliff knew when he'd come back. That stopped when you were born. Cliff stopped running. He was still gone a lot for work, and we still had our fights, but he wouldn't leave. Instead, he'd go to your room, Cove. You were asleep, he'd just sulk on the ground by your crib until you woke up. That's not creepy at all. He always made sure I got the mattress. He instead set up a spot in the corner of the nursery just in case you needed anything through the night. He gave you a more private space when you got bigger, but he still always made sure he could be there for you. There's still no denying whether Cliff understands or not. He made his choice without prioritizing me. But it wasn't that he suddenly hated me. To Cliff, I was a wife on paper. In his mind, I was a cool girl he had dated and generally liked. Nothing close to being the light of his life. All his blood, sweat, and tears weren't for himself or me or even the family unit. They were all completely and totally for his baby. Meanwhile, I was doing the same, but in an opposite way. I didn't take us being married seriously. I was trying to force us together as a couple so we could be a complete family for our child. You felt like a fly on the wall of a very personal conversation. Cove didn't seem to notice when you looked over at him, face a complicated patchwork of emotions. Eventually I woke up and saw what I was doing. I realized it wasn't going to work, not like that. When I was ready for it, I talked to Cliff about separating and starting up the divorce process. He was shook by it, and unfortunately, it wasn't too long after when you had your accident, Cove. French fires, I don't know how much Cove really told you about it, but when he broke his arm, it terrified all of us. He could have died. Even back then, we knew he'd likely have a permanent scar he'd have to live with forever. Our parenting hurt our child, and he was the one who'd have to carry the repercussions. You were still a bit taken aback, being referred to directly. You still felt a little out of place, and she seemed completely focused on her son. Cove grimaced, and the hand holding his phone shook. Kira continued as if she'd never paused. It was heartbreaking. And then on top of all that, to put you through your parents breaking up, taking that back wasn't an option, despite the timing. It felt like everything we had worked so hard for, to make you happy, was for nothing. I chose to believe we'd fix our lives from there, but to Cliff it seemed hopeless. He had failed his son. It was easier for me in some ways. I had my family to lean on. That made it feel less daunting. Less impossible. Cliff had only ever really known being on his own, by the happenstance of his birth and then by choice. When we broke up, he knew he was going to have to put the pieces of what was left alone. I wanted to be there for him, even after everything, but I was the one divorcing him. It was impossible. I never managed to be someone he truly relied on, and I had to remember that wasn't changing. As bleak as it felt at the time, Cliff still tried not to let any of that show to you, Cove. He did what he could to keep your spirits high about the move, your new house, your scar, everything. So that's why. Cove trailed off. He had misunderstood the impact his injury had on his parents. You were reminded of something that made more sense now. Mr. Holden had been so helpful with Cove's old Halloween costume because he didn't want Cove to be saddened by the scar. It was clear Cove was coming to that same realization. Now, with all that said, if Cliff was a completely perfect, wonderful guy, I wouldn't have left him. If it was even pretty good, I would have stayed. It was hard not to have custody. Sometimes I felt like I was a fun aunt rather than a mom I always wanted to be. I might have overcompensated a little at times because of that. She forced a laugh, but had an uncomfortable edge to it. You could tell she was trying to blow off a very real anxiety of hers. Cove looked ready to say something, but his mom kept talking, kept moving forward. Still, it's not Cliff's fault alone that our relationship didn't work. We were always better as co-parents than spouses, but I knew in separating that it wasn't going to be even. And Cove, the only reason I could stand not being there for you all the times is because I knew that if the situation was reversed and I could have provided a more stable environment, Cliff would have done the same. Your dad would have given up his house, his shop, even his right arm if it would guarantee you were safe and happy. So as painful as it was, I was sure you'd be okay because you were still with someone who loved you more than anything else in the world. Cove lowered his head, tears falling to the ground. He tried to speak. Took him a few tries.
Thank you for telling me.
His voice cracked. Kira made an alarmed sound on the other end of the line. I'm sorry, baby. I didn't mean to make you cry.
It's okay.
He was still crying, everyone could tell, being physically present or not.
I love you, Mom. You'll always be my mom. Not some aunt. My mom.
I love you too. Her tone was thick with emotion. She was at the edge of a voice break herself. So lucky to be your mom. She started to sniffle openly. Don't feel bad for me with how it worked out. I promise that none of it was your fault. And it's not as though I'm completely miserable over here. I have an incredible life with a beautiful baby boy of my own who calls whenever he can. At that, Cove's tears only came down heavier.
Thank you.
Kira sighed affectionately, and you could hear the warmth in her voice. I think that's good for now. Maybe we should end the call. Take a moment.
Is that really alright?
He tightened his grip on the phone, and you could see how emotionally exhausted he looked. Of course, we'll be in touch soon. For now, you'll only be able to keep thanking me, or apologizing.
Hey.
Cove cried out defensively over the accusation, making his mom snicker. Bye. Goodbye to you, French fries. I'm glad you're there for my baby. Talk to you later, I guess.
Bye, Mom. I
love you too. Cove hung up. He let his hand drop to his side, his phone brushing the fabric of his wetsuit. His other hand went up to his face, and he tried to wipe the tears from his eyes. His face was red, and he struggled to put his phone back in his bag one-handed. You could tell he was getting worked up. He finally just used both of his hands and sealed his phone back into its normal place. Cove sniffled and then reached out for you. His hand trembled in your grasp, and you squeezed back. He needed to feel your support. Want to go see your dad again? He didn't have to tell you what was on his mind for this. Cove nodded. You rushed back the way you came, feet pounding across the boards of the dock to return to the scuba shop for the third time. It was a little difficult to keep up with him. His stride was already longer than yours, but with him almost running, you had to pick up the pace. You reached his dad's store, and Cove still wasn't slowing down. He pushed his way through the door at full speed. His hand released yours as he charged in. Mr. Holden had been walking around the middle of the store checking over things. Immediately, he turned around at the sound. What? Where's the fire, brah? He froze when he got a look at Cove's face. He worriedly opened his mouth, probably to ask what was wrong, but then Cove launched himself at his father. Cove threw his arms around Mr. Holden's neck, and he buried his face in his dad's shoulder and started to sob with deep, hitching breaths. Cliff clearly had no idea what was going on, and his hands hovered awkwardly in the air. He turned to look at you for a brief second, hoping for understanding before turning all of his attention on Cove. He wrapped both arms around Cove's back. Cove looked secure in his father's embrace, protected, safe. It's okay. Be okay, whatever it is. You're gonna be okay, brah. Cove kept crying. He inhaled deeply, his voice choking up whenever he tried to speak.
So sorry. You always tried to be there for me when I was growing up, and I was mean to you. So sorry.
What?
What?
Mr. Holden was completely taken aback. He hadn't expected this to be the issue. You don't have to apologize for that, brah. Kids are allowed to be mad at their parents. It's my job to take care of you. I really didn't do anything special. Cove shook his head as empathetically as he could, while still tucked against his dad.
Always supported me no matter what. Always loved me. Wish I realized how much you did sooner.
Cove squeezed him tighter.
Thank you. I love you, Dad.
At his son's heartfelt confession, the father became choked up as well. He compressed Cove into a crushing hug. I do love you, I always will. You can count on that, brah.
I want to be there for you, too.
They clung on to one another, absorbed in the moment. Then after a little while longer, they slowly began to lose their hold. Cove sniffled and moved so he could use his palm to wipe away his tears. His dad's shirt was visibly damp where his face had been. Cliff patted the top of Cove's shoulders. He looked at his son with pride. "You've grown up so much, brah." Cove started to laugh through his tears, a wavering smile on his lips. You doubted that Cove would have ever thought that crying on his dad's shoulder was a sign of maturity, but it was true. Cove had changed over the years. Glad to see Cove. No, this is hella awkward. This whole day is hella awkward, man. I don't need options. Awkward, 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 awkward. More awkward. Let's go. I had not expected this much crying when you had gotten up today. You felt like an intruder in a private moment, someone just in the way. You wondered if Cove would even notice if you crept out of the store. He wiped his eyes again.
You're a good dad.
You're a good bra. Mr. Holden was plainly touched by his words and beamed at his beloved child. Cove looked away and shyly traced his scar. Cliff chuckled and released Cove to rub the back of his neck. The earlier panic had bled off and left the confusion. I'm glad we had this talk, but what was it that made you cry in the first place? You weren't too bad off when you left before, brah.
Oh.
Cove ducked his head further down, getting a very good look at the scuff marks on the floor.
He called Mom. I wanted to talk to her about all of it.
He kicked one of his feet shyly, swinging it back and forth against the ground.
It felt really hard when I was younger, but it wasn't just me going through stuff, Dad. Never give yourself credit.
Cliff smiled gently and gripped Cove's shoulder with reassurance. Here's an amazing person to come to my defense, brah. For me, the only hard part was seeing you and her unhappy. Everything else, that was nothing. He wrapped an arm around Cove's neck for another side hug. Cove leaned into the embrace and glanced up at his dad. The old man is tougher than he looks. Check out how powerful these arms are. Reps, biceps, brah. Cove laughed. It was a light sound, full of fondness.
Okay.
He quieted down a little, finding a quick moment of seriousness.
Thanks again, Dad. I know you don't want me to feel bad. I'm happy. Because of everything you and Mom did. A really nice life.
Mr. Holden's countenance became much more serious. He didn't take what was said lightly. Brah, you're very welcome. That's so good to hear. Then he let Cove go again. This time they both took a step back to their normal proximity. Mr. Holden cleared his throat. He looked you right in the eyes. I also appreciate that you were here for support, French Fires, brah. What a loyal partner. Cove looked back down, embarrassed. Glad I could be here. I want to be there for you too, Mr. Holden. Thanks for finally noticing me. Finally! Resolution! You clapped with a broad smile on your face. Cliff glanced away in embarrassment, mirroring his son. They stood like that, almost perfect copies of each other for an awkward moment. Hey, maybe I ought to give you another 20 for all this. You put up with a lot over the years, brah. Cove turned to you, shaking his head.
Well, I told you that you got a bad deal. But seriously, Dad, you have to stop offering her money.
I mean, I could use some money, I'm just saying. You were mostly joking. That being said, you wouldn't mind a $20 bill.
Not you, too.
Okay. I'll leave making jokes about that to Cove, brah. Cove smiled satisfied at that.
Alright.
Cove exhaled slowly, his posture relaxing.
We better get going. You'll still have work, Dad. And I think French Fires has been patient enough. I didn't want to bring her here to watch me cry to my parents.
Cliff grinned and waved the two of you off. Sure thing. Happy you both stopped in. But you gotta go have some fun. Careful out there, brah.
I don't need to go jet skiing anymore. French Fires, you still want to go. I don't mind watching.
Well, fuck me! Why do we have this day? Why do I go anywhere with you? No way, you're a mature young bra. You want a jet ski, then you should go jet ski. I'll still be here if you need anything, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Bye, take care of yourself. Let's get a move on, bitch! Been waiting for your ass. Cove waved to his dad and he started walking out. You followed. When you turned back to Mr. Holden before you went out the door, he was waving. Bye, kids. You'll do great. Once again, as had become today's habit, you and Cove walked down the dock side by side. But this time, Cove had a bounce back in his step. His smile was soft but radiant.
Thanks for staying. Sorry for how long it took.
Welcome, you do the same. These things happen. I was curious. Fine. I'm feeling it'd be a bigger deal than it started as. Promise we won't have more interruptions. I'm gonna go like, it's fine. It's really not. You had an idea of what you were getting into. You didn't blame Cove for wanting answers. Cove grinned at you, all grateful, positive, and sunshine. The water lapped at the dock beneath your feet. Cove looked down when a particularly strong wave crashed against it.
It's weird to think about my parents' relationship. They're all this stuff that I don't know because I wasn't there or because I was just a kid, because I didn't exist yet. Feels really complicated.
Relationships are complicated, Cove! You agreed with him. Connections to other people were as varied as they were as relationships with other people were as varied as the waves of the ocean. I can read. Cove nodded without elaboration. He looked out at the ocean wistfully for a moment before he shook it off.
I'm happy they were married, even if they didn't stay together in the end.
I'm happy that you're peppy again.
Peppy?
Yep, this bitch, did I stutter?
If you say so.
You asked what he thought about marriage for himself. You tried to refocus on what ahead. Well, I am curious, but like, I want to can we just go? I'm gonna ask him. Are you scared of it?
What?
Marriage. You know, because of your parents' history. Cove shook his head shyly. He didn't hesitate for a second.
No. Surprisingly, I don't have issues about the idea of getting married someday.
You looked at him, not bothering to hide your intrigue. He chuckled self-consciously at the reaction he got.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Trying to actually propose would be terrifying. I'm sure planning a whole wedding would be hard, especially for me.
What isn't hard for you?
Just the thought of having someone I love that I was married to, that I'd spend the rest of my life with, that doesn't scare me. Well, what about you? Do you ever want to be officially married someday?
Yes, I really want. I don't see myself getting married. I'm not sure. I only get married if I found someone special. I haven't thought about it. You didn't answer. Yes, I am gonna go with yes. That is my opinion. It was a bit of a dream for you.
Oh.
Well, don't get all excited! Fuck me, I guess. He quickly decided to change the subject after that admission.
Alright, no more distractions. Let's go. Time to jet ski.
You laughed at him loudly. He only looked more determined. You were gonna jet ski. The two of you began to more quickly make your way across the boards. Despite your excitement, you were both careful. Neither of you wanted an accident, especially after what happened with Cove's first jet skiing trip. Finally got to the rental place and it was closed. That's what it should say, because that'd just be the cherry on the top of this goddamn sundae. It took no time at all for Cove to climb on his jet ski with shaky legs. You rented your own jet ski. You decided, I'm getting my own fucking, get out of my way. Give me a jet ski. You don't know what I've been through today. You spent this entire time wanting to jet ski and you were thrilled to finally climb onto one. It was lime green with blue detailing. The jet ski rocked slightly as you got on, bobbing with the waves. You looked across to Cove. He sat motionlessly astride his jet ski, preparing himself to start up. Even from your distance, you could tell his hands were clamped onto the handles too tightly. He was stiff and nervous. Go on! You can do it! Get your old ass in there! We gotta win this thing! Cheered him on and clapped wildly. His body language relaxed slightly, and he turned his head to look at you.
Thanks.
He inhaled slowly and started up the jet ski. It roared forward, and you were surprised you could hear him squeak over the sound of the engine. He stopped after a few seconds and breathed again. After he'd calmed down, he started it up once more. Cove sputtered and stalled for a while. Going a little further each time, he grew more comfortable with the feel. He got the hang of the jet ski fairly quickly, and it didn't take him long to learn how to turn properly, and left it running for longer spurts of time. Cove eventually reached the point where he only stopped the jet ski when he had something to say. He kept shouting things at you.
This is amazing! You see that, French fry? Look what I can do! It's so great!
You'd gotten your own jet ski going as well. You made sure to keep a safe distance. Cove watched what you did with enthusiasm.
Nice turn!
He zoomed forward and you could hear his bright laugh ring across the waves. You cheered for him again, whooping whenever he did something fun. Took a jet ski like a fish in water. You had been nervous, but you weren't bad. You never left the start-stop phase. It reminded you of a jet skiing game you played in the past. What? I'm gonna go with... I feel like I could get the hang of a jet ski. Let's go there. Knowing that jet skis could be dangerous, you kept a healthy caution over the vehicle. It was tricky at the start. You drove at short bursts each time you made it go forward. It seemed much too fast. You worried that you were going to fly off the jets, or the jet ski would flip over. However, it didn't take you long to realize that you had decent control over the vehicle. You grew more comfortable with the controls and you let yourself relax a little. Eventually, the sun set and you had to pack up. Cove was thankfully still in one piece. No cast necessary. After everything has returned, Cove dug his phone out of his bag and texted his parents to let them know all about his triumph. An idea to take a photo to mark the occasion struck Cove, and he wanted you to join him for the selfie. Silly pose, angles, cover my face, a smile. I mean, probably silly pose. Cove snickered when you got into position. He hesitated for a moment before trying his own silly face. He showed you the picture and it made you smile. It would be a nice memory. His phone vibrated only after a moment after texting it out. Mr. Holden and Kira had likely been waiting the entire day to find out how this outing would go. With the news of his success, both of Cove's parents set back how proud they were of Cove for how far he'd come. Watching him grinning in the setting sun after facing so many fears that day, you felt the same. Did I? Did I really? After lunch, you ran into Baxter. He was more than happy for an impromptu hangout in your neighborhood. He idly spoke about the first time he bought a shirt online. Apparently the website hadn't been in English, so he had to make do with automatic online translation. His unique fashion sense was eclectic in more than one way. Finding out how he filled out his wardrobe answered some of your questions about his look. He smiled in fond remembrance. I measured myself multiple times to make sure I could order the correct size. It wasn't as if I'd be able to ship it back if there were no problems. But to make a long story short, it arrived in one piece, multiple months later. At that point, I wasn't going to complain. It was a physical object in my hands. He gestured with his arm for emphasis. As he did, Baxter glanced at his wrist. At a watch that wasn't there. Anyway, hope I'm not taking up too much of your time with this, baby doll. You had a few chores to do, but you didn't want to do them. Baxter eased back and returned to chatting. The two of you meandered around the neighborhood, aimlessly walking as you talked. I saw Cove earlier. He was on his way to work, from what I gathered in a brief chat from how he was dressed. Yeah, he's working as a server at the tropical place. It fits him. Lucky you found such a nice gig in this town. Cove likes having his mornings and early afternoons free, so he always takes the later shifts. Since you're free, baby doll, perhaps we could do better than standing here? I'd be delighted to invite you over to my condo to chat more comfortably. I promise I won't cry all day. That's not how Baxter rolls. Baxter's condo. You lived on this street your entire life, but had never actually been inside. You were curious. Go, I can't. I thought you'd never ask. You nodded. You shook your head. That sounds lovely. But I'll need to leave before this evening. I have plans to visit Cove at his work, too. Of course, I wouldn't presume to keep you. He made a grand, sweeping gesture directed at his place, and led the short walk over. You followed beside him, stopping when you reached his front door. He opened it for you and welcomed you inside. It was a familiar threshold from childhood. You couldn't help having a slight shiver up your spine as you thought of his condo's previous residence. Oh yeah, it's the fucking old people! You took a quick breath as you cautiously stepped into the condo. The first thing you noticed was just how unexpectedly nice and sleek it was. It was also clean and smelled faintly like some sort of undefinable air freshener. You had to wonder how much of this was due to whoever rented it out, former residents, or the current one. Regardless of the pleasant presentation, you were on edge. You couldn't help but stay on guard, as if mean not grandparents might jump out and yell at you at any moment. Hey! Baxter noticed something of your discomfort and raised an eyebrow. Is, everything alright, baby doll? I've never seen the inside of this condo. He seemed genuinely surprised. The former neighbors never had you over for tea? Sounds out of character for this street. You laughed at the thought of the prior visitors willing to be in the same space as you. Definitely not. This was the mean old people's house. They weren't exactly nice to kids. They'd be appalled to know I was in here. Wow, this is amazing. I can't believe I'm actually inside. That's what he said. Baxter's smile was curled as he ushered you the rest of the way inside and closed the door. I'd like to hear more about this. Sounds like there's a story here. He sat on his sofa, first sitting properly before readjusting his position to a comfortably forward crouch. He waved his eyes towards his furniture, an invitation to take a seat yourself. Sit on the couch beside him, sprawl on the other half of the couch. Take a seat in a nearby chair or continue standing. I sprawl, bitch. That's what I do. You plopped down and got comfortable. You tucked your legs up, careful not to get your shoes on the cushion, and took advantage of the space you had. Your back rested on the arm of the couch, so you were turned to face Baxter. He didn't bat an eye at your position. So you want to hear about the mean not grandparent?
Absolutely.
My ears are open, baby doll. Begin to give him a rundown of your past neighbors, explaining how they didn't like children and had a reputation among others for being nasty. I wish I had more exciting stories. Honestly, I think the most memorable thing was when I almost ding-dong ditched them. My sister Lizzie wanted me to do it, but I didn't. But neither did she, so it's fair. Baxter chuckled at your non-prank story. Sounds like you. The two of you continued to chat until the sun started hanging lower in the sky. It could be seen falling through his large windows. You stood up when it was time to go, and Baxter led you to the door. I think I'm actually gonna go out on the town myself. It's a good night for exploring. You nodded as you stepped outside. Bye, see you later. Thanks for having me. Have a nice time. Bye! Goodbye, baby doll! Oh shit. I should have dropped the game. You parted in good spirits and walked off. You entered your house and got yourself ready to visit Cove. You were definitely looking forward to seeing him. Lately, Cove had been working more often. You rarely saw him during his shifts for obvious reason. He was busy. That's why it had been a surprise when Cove had asked you to swing by. Maybe Cove was also thinking about how much his job had impacted how often you saw each other. Grabbed your keys, or you started to walk. Well, I don't know how far it is, so I should probably drive. Made sure you had your wallet too before you left the house. You climbed in to the well-worn car. Turned the radio on, started up some music, sent a quick text. I text, Ari Master and I text each other constantly, so we're gonna text. You pulled out your phone and tapped away at the screen. You didn't expect a response while he was on the clock, so you put your phone away and started driving. Soon enough, you reached the parking lot of the tropical restaurant. You headed right inside. There was a small jingling of a bell as the front door closed behind you. It alerted the employees to your arrival, and you scanned the lobby for a tall, green-haired waiter. You saw a flash of movement and stepped to the side so you could see the back corner better. With the better angle, Cove was easy to spot. He was cleaning the table of some customers who had just left. His little name tag! That's so cute! He instinctively looked up from the stack of dishes at the sound of someone approaching. Cove met your eyes with a welcome smile when he realized who it was.
Hey, French fries. Thanks for coming.
Of course. How's it going? Making good money? Cove laughed quietly, his eyes alight with passive amusement.
You should have seen it. When I got here earlier, there was a huge fight going on with the schedule. I just tried to stay out of it. I'm lucky no one else wants to close. It's not something I've got to defend. Some shifts are too competitive.
He shook his head at the memory. He wondered how the shifts had been sorted out in the end. He didn't bother to elaborate further on his workplace drama.
Anyways, yeah, it's fine. That was the most exciting today got.
Glad you don't have to deal. Good thing you weren't dragged into the problem. Now I'm worried about what it's going to be like when I get a job. I have no comment. Your stories are boring. They bore me. He changed the subject, talking a little more detail about what else had happened during the shift. He told you about a table of interesting tourists who had ordered with puns and tipped well. Outside of the strange shift arrangement earlier, Cove was having a decent day.
Oh.
Cove's eyes grew wide and then drifted off. His mind was clearly elsewhere.
Speaking of work, I gotta get back to that. That's what I'm doing right now.
He laughed at how easily your presence made him forget the situation at hand.
Take a seat over here somewhere. That's my area. I'll be back to take your order when I finish with the other table. It won't be long.
With that, he gave a sunny nod and readjusted his apron. No problem. I can be alone for a few minutes. Chose the table closest to the one Cove was clearing, sat in the table near a window, settled into a seat closer to the front. I'm gonna sit by the window. Took a seat right near the wall and stared off into the evening. It already looked so much darker out there than it had only been a few minutes ago. A few cars drove past. A seagull also landed on someone's knees and they had to poke it off. As promised, Cove swung by again. He stood up straight, the task that had been at hand completed. He took your order with a grin and jotted it down neatly. Since you had a moment together, you struck up a new conversation. How's it like working here? So do people hit on you a lot while you're working? I'm gonna flirt with him and make him all bashful and shit. Hey, Cove. Are you on the menu? I do love a man in uniform. I hope they pay you extra for the business you must bring in. I'm gonna go with menu. Are you on the menu? Sound like your mother. It's weird and creepy. Turned bright red and his mouth opened in a small ooh.
Seriously? You're gonna say that now?
There's not a better time that line would work.
Well, you said it.
Yeah, I did!
You can be done.
I wouldn't say. I'd probably just be like, you ain't gonna go get my food? No? Is that what you're doing? My eye itches. Weird. You were suddenly reminded of your afternoon adventure at Baxter's place. Remember the mean non-grandparents? I saw the inside of their home.
Really?
He looked amazed, like he was just barely containing himself from prepping you with questions. Suddenly, a thought hit him like a brick.
Wait.
He settled down immediately.
Guess I shouldn't be surprised. The new person staying there is really, welcoming.
Someone called out for a server. Cove turned his head without pause and gave them his best customer service smile. He nodded at you and then headed over. You watched as he got the other table a round of refills. It was a shame your conversations were so brief, but what else could you expect when he was on the clock? Seeing Cove acting so mature was different. He was like a real adult, giving service with a grin, at least when he remembered he was supposed to be working. Out of him, you felt awkward. You were sad at the reminder you were really becoming adults. You found it hard to believe his crybaby self had come so far. Amen! You remembered when Cove would cry at the drop of the hat, like last moment. Like 2 seconds ago. When he wasn't being bluntly cold, like 2 seconds ago! He still cried easily now, but it was different. He'd grown up and gotten more independent. Cove was really starting to make it in this adult world. It was almost unreal. When did that happen? Cove eventually returned with your drink and then with your food. He stole little moments with you, quick conversations, smiles. You watched him work. He took orders, cleaned tables, and delivered food in a very professional manner. He was always on his feet and rarely stopped moving. After you had finished eating and paid, a few large groups started to flood the restaurant. Some seemed like regular tourists, but there was also a group of 12 carrying in birthday presents. As Cove looked like he was about to be very busy, you decided it was time to head out. You scooted your chair back and started to walk towards the doors. He frowned when he saw you leaving, but then switched right back to a smile. He gave a quick wave before turning back to his bustling tables. You grinned, you sighed, you shrugged. I get like, this is great. I don't know. You felt buoyed to see Cove for a little bit. Wordlessly, you ambled back outside to the shopping area. The evening sun was warm on your skin while you were taking the trip back home. You heard the quiet jingle of your phone and stopped on the sidewalk. Then you pulled it out to check. It was from Mom. Would you mind stopping by the grocery store on your way home to pick up some asparagus and peppers for dinner tomorrow? I saw my little shark! Look at my little shark! I love him. Can't make it myself. Deadlines are tight right now. Thank you. Have a great day. You sighed, you shook your head, you shrugged. You didn't mind, you were happy to, oh, what am I gonna do? Yeah. A trip to the grocery store wasn't anywhere on your mental to-do list today, but there was no use getting upset about the minor detour. You sent back, can do. You weren't expecting her to text back anytime soon, though you did already get a thanks for it. Your phone remained grasped in your hand as you grew lost in your thoughts. Everyone was busy working nowadays. The only person who wasn't was Liz, and you had no idea how long before that changed. You were glad you hadn't gotten a job, it was frustrating you hadn't found a job, you were terrified that one day it'd be up to you to support yourself. You were curious about what working full-time would be like. I'm not curious. It was exciting, imagining your own future career. This is like 18-year-old me? Probably exciting imagining what my future career would be like if it's 18. The day you started working or doing something to support yourself was coming eventually. There were a handful of dream scenarios you bounced around in your head, but you had the rest of your life to try new things as you discovered what you wanted. You were eager to begin that journey. You were still inside your head when another message came through. Looking at your phone, you saw it was Cove this time.
Can we hang out again? After I close at work this time. I could come to your house or something.
You texted back, yeah, why? No. Why? I mean, like, yeah, you're my boyfriend and all that. A fond smile tugged at the corner of your mouth when the next message arrived immediately.
Awesome. Thanks.
You were struck with the idea as your fingers hovered to reply. You are already agreed to run by the store today, and you could meet Cove in town. Actually, I'll meet you at work when you're done. I have to stay out running an errand anyways.
Cool. I'll be here, obviously.
See you later.
Ah, little smiley!
To fill a little gap of space in between your new plans, you decided to sneak Cove more text or browse other places close by. I would probably text him yet again. Text constantly. There was always the chance that he wouldn't respond until later, but he already messaged you before. It could be okay, keep going. You found a way to change the subject and waited to see what he'd do. Delighted that jingling in your hand signaled he took the bait. You carefully continued to walk down the path, hand glued to your phone, and a happy pep in your step. Cove texted as frequently as you imagined he could while sitting on the clock. While still on the clock, telling you all about the various people he had interacted with today. Before long, the first part of the night was over, and it was nearing the end of Cove's shift. Luckily, you were almost back by then. As you approached the restaurant building, you noticed a figure out in front. It was Cove. His silhouette was instantly recognizable to you, even in the dim light of the parking lot. You could see he was smiling eagerly as you got closer. He had been waiting. Got him a smile, you waved, you ran up to hug him, you ran up to kiss him. I shall wave at you, sir. Your hand lifted up mid-torso height, and you shimmied it side to side. We meet again!
Hi, French fires.
His initial excitement at your arrival deflated quickly. Cove stopped being able to meet your eyes as he spoke more.
Sorry for earlier when you were visiting. Wasn't very exciting, was it? I hope I wasn't wasting your time.
Figured we wouldn't be chatting much. It's never a waste to see you. That's sweet. Did feel pointless. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it did. Why did you want me to come in the first place?
The
line of Cove's frowns deepened and he continued his thought.
Just all the shifts I've been doing lately. I wanted to have you around some more. That's really all. To make my day better. But it's not like working has to be a good time. And there's better things you could be doing than watching me do stuff at a distance.
It's okay, there's nothing wrong with wanting some support. Thanks for talking to me about this. What a precious man you are, I'm flattered.
French fires.
Cove dramatically scrunched his face at your embarrassing praise of him. You grinned easily. You felt proud that you were the one he called when he needed someone to lift his spirits. Cove flushed as you beamed openly at him.
I'm glad my job doesn't have to get in the way of us being together.
I feel the same way.
Thanks. It works out then.
Cove reached out for you and you leaned into it. He gently held you against him as you relaxed against his body. It was comforting.
What was that errand you talked about before? Are you still doing that?
Yeah. You should come with me. It was late, and you knew that Cove wanted to go home, but admittedly, you wanted company. He eased that concern by smiling softly.
Sure, yeah. I can go shopping with you.
Did I tell you it was shopping? How'd you know? You've been following me?
I like spending time with you.
Thanks. I like that too. Moments later, Cove had his things together and you were both ready to swing by the store. You pulled into one of the many free parking spots at the neighborhood 24-hour grocery. You waved at Cove when he parked next to you. There was a salty smell in the air as two of you strolled through the dim parking lot. The local burger joint on the other side of the pavement guaranteed the place always smelled like French fries. It smells like me! Ah! Your eyes squinted at the change of lighting when you made it inside the building. The automatic doors shut behind you. With you truly having arrived, Cove raised his brow curiously.
Oh, what are we here for again?
Asparagus and peppers. It's for something my moms are making tomorrow.
Sounds good. This'll be a short trip.
You idly scanned the front room for a basket you could use. A full cart wasn't necessary. You say that until your arms are full of shit, and then you gotta go back and get a cart. You spell I'm responsible! You were already looking forward to tomorrow's dinner. I don't even know what it is. It was overwhelming how much you had to take care of. You couldn't stand the thought of making it longer. That was all there was to it. It was a recent change that you wanted to fully embrace. You spotted the baskets and caught a glimpse of Cove's full appearance while looking down to pick up one. Kinda weird to see you dressed in a uniform in a different store. Cove snickered while sliding up beside you.
Hey, it's like I'm wearing a costume after Halloween is over. But I just hope no one thinks I work here. The uniform is totally different, but you never know.
Basket in hand, you ambled towards the vegetable section. It was set near the back, but visible right from the entrance. Coats is, you see these vegetables? Cove matched your pace, keeping at your side. The asparagus was simple enough to select. You simply picked up a bundle that looked fresh. All that was left was the peppers. There was a wrinkle in that plan.
What color did they want?
You didn't say.
Then what are we gonna do? Color definitely matters.
No, Cove, it doesn't. We'll have to get one of every color. I'll text Mom real quick. She left it out. That means I get to make the call. I don't know.
Well, we could get one of every color. We'll for sure have something she can use that way.
Alright, that should work. Thanks, Cove. So you and Cove meticulously went down the row of pepper pallets. Green, yellow, red, orange, and even a couple multicolored peppers got placed in the basket. You worked as a team to be certain nothing was missed. Produce acquired, all that was left was to go through the line. But as you approached the cash register, Cove stopped in its tracks.
Oh, while we're here, I want to get something too. I need fruit for breakfast tomorrow. What should I have?
He glanced back, unsurely, at the section you just left. Whatever it is, you better hurry, because I'm getting in line. Cove, you had plenty of time for that before we were leaving. I can go back and look with you. I guess. That coaxed a small smile from Cove. His tension eased.
Thanks, French fires. I'm sorry.
It's fine. We can take a little more time to do this. What did I say? What did I say? Until your arms are full of shit and you need a cart. That is literally... Cove gratefully led you back to the fruit stand. He let his eyes wander across all the options, seriously considering his decision. Not bothering to rush, you walked up and down the produce aisle for the second time that trip. Finally, something caught his attention. Transparent cases containing fresh blueberries. Cove grinned.
That's it. It'll be perfect for tomorrow.
Great. Despite the suddenness of how it happened, you were genuinely glad Cove was able to get something nice for himself during the visit to the store. It made the trip even more worthwhile. Cove carried his food himself, and the two of you went back to get a spot in line. After that, you completed separate orders for what you were getting. The produce was packed away into paper bags. There was one for you and one for Cove. You both had what you needed in hand, and the errand was finished. You walked across the length of the store to reach the door closest to where you had parked. You and Cove stepped back into the night. Cove lightly swung his back and forth in his grip, and you peered squinting into the dark parking lot. He smiled slightly, gentle expression on his lips.
Thanks for inviting me to the grocery store.
You don't have to thank me for that. Thanks for keeping me company. Thank my mom for sounding me out. You're welcome. I'm gonna say thanks for keeping me company.
You're welcome. We should do this again.
After a moment of walking further in the parking lot, he sighed madly. As nice as Cove was about this, he had to be tired after working a full shift.
It's been a long day.
Yeah? That very brief exchange really summed it up. Cove shook his head to himself, amusement replacing his worn-down expression.
When did a busy day go from having way too many ways we wanted to play or having some extra homework to having to spend all day at a job and then running errands after? It's called being a fucking adult, Cove. I don't know when we became grown-ups. Yes. This is the true adult experience? Working, buying food, and then squeezing in human interaction while you're doing other productive stuff? Well, yes, kid me did always think older people spent their lives at their jobs. I was right all along.
He laughed, and you had to agree. Cove's eyes narrowed as his mouth opened slightly. He was having a thought.
Moms need the stuff for tomorrow's dinner? Not tonight, right?
Uh-huh.
And nothing's frozen, so you don't need to get home urgently or want to go across the parking lot to that fast food place? We could get something. You know it's still open, doesn't matter how late it is. Might be nice.
Perked up at the suggestion. It sounded like fun. You started speed walking towards it. Cove had to jog after you until he caught up. He chuckled and then raised his bag of groceries.
Maybe we should deal with these first.
Oh, right.
Let's drop the groceries off and then we can go.
You agreed, and Cove strolled over to the cars, buoyed at the thought of something to look forward to. He placed his bag in the back of his car and then walked over while you finished putting up your groceries. With the groceries taken care of, it was a short walk to the burger joint. There were 3 cars lined up in the drive-thru, which wasn't too bad. You had to go all the way around the building to get to the front entrance. But soon you were under a set of bright fluorescent lights. I'm already sold, because what is this? There's like free flat circle rings and free exploding bun? Like what I would... Best burger joint ever. Luckily, there was no line inside the building, so you stepped right up to the counter. You glanced over the menu. You remembered eating here before with Cove, back when Kira had taken you both years ago. The menu looked pretty much the same from what you could remember. It was missing the mozzarella sticks, but most of the other items were familiar. Story of my life! No mozz sticks! Oh! What would you like to order?
Wiki Mart.
Yeah, hello. I'd like one of everything on your dessert menu.
You burst out laughing. You gave him "Are you serious" look. Hey, you stole my order. Good idea. I would probably just laugh. What if this is like they're closing in an hour and someone literally is like, you fucking ass. He brushed a hand against the back of his head and his polite smile for the employee.
Mom rubbed off on me.
He was reminiscing on that visit too. After the cashier made sure Cove was being serious, it was your time to order. You got hamburger, vegan burger, chicken sandwich, spicy chicken sandwich, French fries, onion rings, salad. Fuck salad. Why is that even on here? Jalapeno peppers, soda, a milkshake. Brings all the boys to the yard. I gotta get one of those. Hamburger, Royale with cheese. And French fries, and that was all. Cove gave you a little thumbs up. He wasn't the only one indulging. Oh god, thanks, Cove. That makes me feel great. You wrapped up the ordering process, paid, and got number 264, then claimed a table. You sat down across from Cove in a booth where you had a good view of the front counter. It was nice to have the pick of the place. Thanks for doing this. I'm looking forward to this. Too bad the mozz sticks are gone. That's literally what I said.
Oh, I didn't even notice. Wonder when they got rid of them.
Neither of you had to answer that question. Then you took out your phone to text your moms about your delay home. You didn't want them to worry. Cove watched you before pulling out his phone as well, maybe for the same reason you did. When the updates were sent, it was back to being just you and your neighbor once more. He offered you a shy smile.
I miss you, you know. Even if you weren't ever really gone. It's been less time than I'm accustomed to.
Cove tapped his fist on the table definitively. He paired that affection with a childish pout. If someone saw him like that, they might have assumed he was throwing a fit over not getting the toy that comes with the kids' meal. Feel the same way. We demand more time with each other. We demand it. You dropped your palms on the table for added emphasis. Yes, I did.
Exactly.
He beamed at you sincerely, a ray of sunshine in this late-night food trip. When the number was called, Cove hopped up from a seat before you could react.
I got it. Save our spot.
All right, see you. I'm helping get that. No, I'm gonna help. You can't carry all the desserts and the hamburgers, Cove.
All right. Guess we probably don't have to worry about someone taking over our seats.
He threw a glance across the empty restaurant with a smirk. He snickered as you both walked over to the counter together. There were 2 trays sitting on the counter. Cove grabbed the one that was mostly his dessert items, leaving space for you to reach for the other. Cove picked up the drinks and passed you them. Then he grabbed the tray with food.
This way we don't actually spill.
You agreed to Cove's plan and worked together to bring back the food. Once you had everything situated and placed on the table, the 2 of you returned to your seats. Oh, look how happy! He's so happy! Cove didn't hesitate before digging in. He took a large bite of his cookie and immediately sipped his milkshake. What is this? Is this like a fruit pie? Then he took a spoon and sampled his sundae with an approving hum. He made an attempt to follow it up with a bit of his apple pie as well, but bailed with a distressed look on his face. You tilted your head in a silent question.
What?
His little facial expressions are so cute. He switched back to the milkshake, taking a dedicated slurp. Cove sighed at the cool relief it brought. You also started to taste yours. It really wasn't bad. In only a minute, Cove's cookie was gone. You wouldn't be surprised if the milkshake wasn't far behind. He smiled as he enjoyed himself. He flicked a straw wrapper. Oh, I flick straw wrappers all the fucking time, man. You found the paper discarded from the straw Cove used for his milkshake. He squished it into a little ball while he was distracted and then very deliberately launched it at Cove. Your aim was true and hit him square in the nose. Cove was shocked when it struck. Once he looked from the paper ball on the table to your mischievous smile, your attack finally dawned on him. He pouted and drank his drink. Drank his drink! He pouted and drank his drink with the feel of great betrayal. You snorted at his reaction when his lip wobbled. He broke into a smile and shook his head at the stillness. He scooped up a tiny ball and lobbed it back at your side. You felt so glad Cove agreed to come along with you on the initial grocery trip, and equally happy you accepted his invitation here. A little time off your feet, a little something to eat, you felt more energized than before. You continued to chat, mess around, laugh, enjoy yourselves. For the first time that night, you felt like you weren't totally grown up after all.